All right, everyone, welcome back to
The Lo and Zo Show.
Today. Our episode is all about our money, and we're going to be talking a lot about how we've really overcome some shame around the relationship we have with money and speaking about it, telling other people about it, especially being entrepreneurs and coaches. It's important for us to speak about how far we've come along in our journeys, but speaking for me personally, there was a lot of hesitation around sharing perhaps numbers or amounts of money that I've quantum leapt into in my life.
Yeah, we're actually going to talk about how much money we make and what that looks like. Zoe's like, okay, we're going to do it. But honestly, I know that for me and my business, the reason that I believed that I could do really well was because there were other female entrepreneurs out there who were willing to share, you know, how much they were freaking killing it. And so I just think that it's not that everyone needs to share about their money. It's that we have to stop feeling weird or guilty about doing that.
And apologizing, because the more that we strengthen and build that relationship with money, the more we allow it to flow into our life.
And then the more good we can do.
Yeah.
You know? So today we're talking about our money.
Let's get started.
I'm Lo.
And I'm Zo, and this is the
Lo and Zo Show. We're coaches and entrepreneurs who firmly believe that an abundant mind is the key to an abundant life.
On this podcast, we're going to be talking everything from how to manifest more money, travel, success in business, and beyond,
to overcoming the blocks that are holding you back,
to rewiring your brain so you can easily attract whatever it is you want the most in life.
If you haven't already, be sure to join us inside our Facebook community, Abundant Mind Tribe, for daily tips, mindset hacks, manifesting tricks, and more that'll allow you to build the confidence you need
to manifest the abundant AF life you deserve.
Now let's get started.
All right, everyone, let's dive into it. Let's talk about our money, Lo. Where do we begin?
So still obviously has a little bit of resistance to work through, but that's okay. It's a journey.
Yeah, you're pushing me as it's the loving push that I need.
Well, you know what's funny about this episode is that we actually had it scheduled for February. We had a day before any of the craziness of the world started. It might even have been January, actually. Mm-hmm. We had a day to go to the studio that was scheduled, and we knew that we wanted one of the first episodes of season 2 to be called Let's Talk About Our Money. And we ended up having to cancel last minute. There was construction going on at the studio that our sound technician didn't know about, and so this episode has gotten, and then we were going to do it, I don't even remember. Anyways, this episode has gotten pushed back like almost 6 months now.
Yeah.
And it's really was meant to be that way because so much has changed about even since then. We were always going to talk to you guys about our money, what we make and that kind of thing. But 2020 has really, for me, been a very good year. And I've been very intentional about that. But also the money mindset work that I do and really leaning into trust with money has changed significantly. And so this episode 5-6 months ago, or even 4 months ago, wouldn't have been what it's going to be today. And that was like, it meant to be that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyways, all divine timing.
Yeah. So we are going to talk a little bit about like what some of the specific money mindset work is that we do that has really allowed us to quantum leap in 2020. But the idea for this episode came when we were promoting QC Squared, which was in January. And we were talking about our quantum leaps to promote that program, which, by the way, QC Squared is launching again. When is it launching, so?
It is launching in August, you guys. Yeah. I can't wait, personally. The transformations that people go through in those programs, the things that they've manifest, like soulmates, large sums of money, incredible opportunities, the magic awaits.
I was just talking to someone like 3 days ago who said, inside QC Squared, I met the love of my life and we're still together, and it's because of the course, you know?
Yeah.
And I said to her, like, it's because you did the work in the course. But yeah, it's just, to this day, it's one of my very favorite things that I've ever created. It's unlike anything else out there. So it is launching again in August, and there is a wait list for it. So we will put the link for that in the show notes, just so that you guys know.
Yeah, and anything's possible, you guys. As time goes on and we get closer to that course, we're going to be sharing some of the success stories and, of course, more of our personal quantum leaps, and it's just a really game-changing, life-changing program. Yeah. Like Laura said, one of the best things we've ever created, that's for sure. It was divinely downloaded.
It really was. But it's such a different course than anything else I've seen out there. Like, it gets weird. It gets into just, like, I mean, it's really, there's a lot of science principles in QC Squared that I know really help to empower people to understand. They're like, okay, this is the mindset work that I'm going to do, and it's going to result in what I want. And then it did, because they had that understanding. And so that's really what I love so much about QC Squared, is like, it empowers people in a way that no other manifestation course I've ever seen or created does.
And it really makes manifestation appear easy and achievable to anyone. And those quantum, like we said, something that seems way out of your realm of possibilities to happen to you, it will happen to you if you just apply the teachings that we teach in that course. Yeah. Effortlessly and easily. Just educate yourself and empower yourself, and boom.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we were promoting that, we were obviously sharing our stories about quantum leaps that we'd created. And so we wrote out a post about, having several 5-figure months, I think you were talking about. Yeah. And there was just so much resistance there for you, right? And do you want to talk a little bit about like where that came from?
Yeah, actually, because it's actually more recently, as in the past, I would say, month of my life, that I really realized where that came from, because I'm working with a theta brainwave healer. And so she helps me go deep into my subconscious mind and figure out the belief statements that are blocking me from having what I want in my life. But what I realized through her, we were working on the subject of love and relationships, is that I feared that if I were to get into a relationship, that success and money could not coexist. And so immediately I was brought back to a lot of memories about my past, which was in the abusive relationship that I was in. My ex stole thousands of dollars from me. He was addicted to gambling online and offline, and stole my credit cards, stole like cash from me. And I never saw that money again, but I have not been in a relationship since then. And that was just something that I decided to take that new story at that time and harbor it in myself, that, if I talk about my money, somebody will take it from me. Because whenever my ex knew that I was getting paid, he would ask if he could have some to play poker and things like that. So that was a subconscious belief that I just started to harbor because of that. And moving even more deeply was that my relationship with my mother, of course, has just been something I've had to work through my entire life. But she never wanted me to be successful, or didn't, anytime that I was successful, really kind of belittle me or shame me. And so for me, money, the relationship that I have with money, I have like a relation to it is in success. And that's just me personally. Like, I feel like I am successful when I'm able to bring in stable income for myself as an independent entrepreneur. And so to have been shamed for any type of success I would have achieved in my life, or have had money and people try to take it, no wonder I harbored this belief that, like, if I share, maybe someone will take it away. Like, that was why I was scared to share, was because if people knew that I had it, maybe that was wrong, or it would be taken away from me. Right. But I didn't know it to that extent, because even when you were prompting me to, like, pushing me to, like, post it, I'm like, why doesn't it feel good? I don't know why it feels good. It's not like I'm bragging, because it's coming from love. I really want to tell people that anything they want is possible. It's possible for them to make this kind of money on their own. But it was deeper. And that's why I felt like intuitively, like, something, I need to do some work here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that that's so interesting to hear that side of it, because for me, I think that where there has been resistance in sharing about, money that I make is more general than that, more like, fearing other people's opinions and fearing that they're assuming I'm bragging about it, or, I don't know, even like, I mean, I had a lot of limiting beliefs around money just growing up. I think a lot of us live in households where it's like, there's only just barely enough, and so there's definitely a lot of work to be done to get past that place. And like the journey with money, you guys, we actually are going to do a course probably towards the end of the year called Money Masters. Yeah. And we're going to really talk about, what this work is, and because there's significant work to be done to really start reaching past that, like, just barely enough narrative that so many of us live our entire lives in. So I had a lot of that going on. When it came to really opening up and sharing about my money openly online, which I do, like, many of my Instagram posts give specific numbers. What definitely helped me was seeing, like, I've been following now for a couple of years other coaches who do very, very well, like, are in the millions, and are very open about that and have been. And so because I was a business coach, I always just sort of assumed I was going to be sharing about my income. And not that you have to as a business coach. It was just something that I don't know, I wanted to, because it had empowered me so much to see other women doing that. Yeah. I think that if there is anything still there for me, it definitely is a sort of like a guilt or like people are going to think that I'm bragging.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, maybe there are times when it's almost coming from ego a little bit. Like that sneaks in there, right? To be like a desire for people to know that you are doing well. Mm-hmm. Like I'm sure that there have been times, but more than that, it's about like, I know that there's a lot of entrepreneurs who follow me. A lot of them are my clients. A lot of them are people that I knew in high school who they're kind of looking to me because I have gotten to this point. I mean, I just literally this morning finished taxes for 2019 and I just passed over the 6-figure mark for last year. And this year I've almost done that like 6 months into.
Yeah.
So that's been like a pretty substantial quantum leap, I would think, in money. And we will talk a little bit about what that has looked like. But yeah, I mean, I'm doing very well financially. It hasn't been a long time coming and I had quite a lot of debt and we can talk a bit about, Zoe and I have both paid off a substantial amount of debt this year. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's not, I wouldn't call myself an expert at money by any means because it's still something I'm still working to really get ahead of myself and have investments and things like that. But month by month, I make more money than most people will ever know in their lifetime. And that, like, even saying that brings up resistance where I'm like, does that sound like I'm, you know, full of myself for it? But I think that this is why we wanted to do this episode. It's like we want people and women especially to be unapologetic in, one, sharing how much money they want to make.
Yeah.
Because long before I was really making any money, I told people I'm building a $1 million business. Right. And really being unapologetic. And they think that you're crazy. But then it's really fun when it starts to look like maybe that could be possible. And then they're like, oh, okay.
I know, Laura. And I have to say, like, over a year ago when we were in Tuscany and we did a podcast episode about manifestation. And then you started talking to me more about money and kind of what my ideas were around programs. And you really opened up my eyes to see what was possible income-wise from developing something like a program, because I've always been interested in passive income, but you're like, nah, here's some numbers around what could be possible for passive income for you. And then since then, it's just been a journey of uncovering more and more of that. And you were the one, because you were open to share, that really was a catalyst for me in changing how I viewed money and what was possible for myself. You expanded my realm of possibilities. So that's why it's important to share if that's what you feel called to do, or if you are a coach, because money is something that we're also, as a collective, most of us are very shamed about speaking about. I know.
And there's so much struggle around money, and it doesn't like, it's available to us, you guys. And this is not just for entrepreneurs, by the way. If you open yourself, if you have a job and you open yourself up to abundance finding you, there are unlimited numbers of ways for it to start coming to you, right? Yeah. And what's really exciting is, like, in a money journey is that you get to watch your sort of muscles around it grow, where it's like, I don't know, you just, your bottom line raises up, right? Yeah. Like what you're used to having in your bank account gets higher and higher. And so at that point it starts to be really gratifying, because like I used to, not even long ago, 2 years ago, I would at the end of the month have all my bills paid and maybe have $100 sitting there if I was lucky, you know? Yeah. And I can't remember the last time that anything close to that even happened. But yeah. And so like, I feel that we almost have, especially as podcast hosts, as, you know, entrepreneurs and coaches, and as women, we have a bit of a duty to talk to you guys about what is available to you. And there's lots of people that are, you know, making way more money than Zoe and I are. But I feel that maybe at this point, where we're at in terms of the money that we're making month after month is almost more inspiring for people, because it's not that out of reach. Yeah. Right. But we have a duty, because there is so much struggle and it's not necessary. And that's not to say that the work isn't hard. Like we have both been relentless in our money mindset. It's work. Like you have to reprogram that shit, you know?
Yeah. And you have to dig into, like, what I said about belief systems. Right. It's not always
look at the
most comfortable thing to look at, because you're like, whoa, I've been holding on to something that deep and not unserving for so long, but then you can let it go.
But yeah, and like, if you're willing to do, you know, some of that work, like a lot of people will just stay in a place of lack around something like money for their whole lives because they don't want to do some of that work, right? But the work, like for me, I've been really, really invested in my own self-development and my money mindset for a few years now. Zoe's a little bit longer. Zoe's like the self-development queen, by the way. There's like nothing. She's a badass. It's amazing. But she's like, oh, I heard about this thing. I signed up. I'm going. She's like, I'm off in the desert meditating for 10 days. No problem. Anyways, so, you know, we have been invested in it. But now I just feel like the life that I live as a result of those few years of really working at it, and it's like a little bit of mindset work each day or even every other day. It's more about what you're doing long term and repeatedly that has the impact. So every single day I have moments where I'm like, I'm so grateful to this life that I've built, and it hasn't been easy, and I've had to look at a lot of things that a lot of people would not want to, but it has been a very, very, very small price to pay, and I feel like we're only getting started.
Yeah.
Right? So I just want people to know what is available to them. And if they don't want, for me, like having more money equals more freedom. That's always been, and that includes, you know, freedom to buy things that I enjoy. I like living in a nice apartment. I like buying things that I, you know, bring me joy. But it's more than that. It's really like, I just didn't want to live my whole life looking at the numbers in my bank account and feeling limited by it.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
And, you know, one thing to be said is money is energy. So how are you inviting this energy in? If, you know, speaking about it shamefully, that's like, oh,
right.
that's that friend that's in our life that like we don't really like to discuss.
Yeah.
Like, you know, something like that. Like,
I think you can really actually dive in. I did a training on this just a couple weeks ago, and someone said like that one thing where you were talking about, you know, if money was a friend, how would you be treating them? Mm-hmm. She was like, that was so eye-opening to me. But if you look at, this is something Jen Sincero talks about in one of her books, excuse me, and she says, write a letter to money as if it was a real person in your life. And yeah, most people would be like, I really love you when you're around, but when you are around, I don't want anybody to know that you're around. And when you're not around, I hate you and I resent you. And I'd really like more of you in my life, but I don't want to admit to that. And I'm going to have shame around it. And I'm going to not even pretend that you're there. You know, it's just like,
yeah,
of course, money does not stay in abundance for most of us because that's the relationship that we have with it. We're angry, right? We're angry at money. We're resentful towards money. A lot of the time we're shameful about money. We're guilty about money. And it's like, I'm just trying to show up for you.
Exactly. But the more and more that I've personally taken that on, like this year especially, quantum leaps happen because I'm just happily living in abundance and not shameful of anything that I've built for myself because I've worked flipping hard to get here.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, our next episode is actually going to be about not apologizing for everything anymore. We did a couple episodes actually about living your unapologetically living your best life, and people really resonated with those episodes, so we're going to take that a little bit further in the next episode. But it's the same thing with this. Like, we have to stop apologizing for wanting to have more money, to have more freedom, to have more success, to have more life.
Yeah, you're allowed. You're allowed to dream big.
Yeah.
In any capacity. And money is such a powerful tool to get you there. So it's time that we start reframing it and start loving money. And I remember, you know, we were going on some money rampages for our mindset work. And I said, you know, money, in regards to trust, even when I've hated money, it's still shown up for me. It's still bought me food. It's still paid my rent. Like, even when I've been frustrated about where is it, when is it coming, how is it coming from, in those times when I've gone in those ego spirals, money still shows up. So it's such a divine, loving energy if you choose to look at it that way. But it's like, how are you framing money? What lens are you looking at it right now? And how can you adjust that?
And it's really just about looking at what your story is. I mean, some of the work that's been very impactful for me is to look at, like, so many of us have a fear about running out of money. You know, it's this constant, like, how much more do I have? What do I have to pay? Oh my gosh, what if we constantly worry that we're not going to be able to pay all the bills. And what really was transformative to me was to look at, like, has that ever actually happened? And don't get me wrong, there were times I put my bills on an already maxed out credit card, but I had the ability to do that. The lights did not get shut off. I never got kicked out of my apartment, you know. I mean, this was like a few years ago now, and so looking at, like, this thing that I fear, which is, like, there's all this anxiety around running out of money. Has that ever happened? And for me, the answer was no. And even, you know, if the worst did happen to you around money, if you're listening to this right now, then things have started going the other way because you have internet.
Yeah.
You have a phone that's allowing you to listen to this, right? So even just realizing that of, like, there always is the money that I need. It always shows up for me, at least what I need, was like, okay, I get to let go now then of this fear that I have that really, I think that's kind of the first step once we can let go of the fear, then we can start to move the needle in the other direction.
Yeah. And like it does start with like asking yourself, what's the worst thing that could happen? The worst thing that could happen, is that actually possible? Like, is there not like someone you could ask for money if it was coming to pay your rent or something like that? Because for me personally, when the fears were arising around money, I'm like, my biggest fear would to be homeless. But I'm like, nah, that just wouldn't happen for me. And then I can move out of the fear because you dispel it. You look at it and expose it for what it is, right?
Yeah.
Like a fear named is a fear tamed. You're looking at it, you're like, nah, you're not going to run the show right now. And then how can you move into more of a space of appreciation? Because in appreciation, you invite it in.
So here's like a building off what Zoe just said. Here's a exercise for you guys, is to look at, how does money show up for you right now? Even just shifting the focus from maybe the ways in which you're not happy about money to the ways in which that you are, like looking at money through an abundance mindset, which is like, I can pay the bills. I have a phone. I have a roof over my head. I have food on the table. Like money does show up for me in these ways. And really starting to breathe energy into that. And then from there, you get to start building, right? Like I do often have money to go and enjoy, dinner out pre-pandemic. And I use money to go on adventures, and like starting to really go on like a rampage of appreciation, like what Zoe was talking about how money shows up for you, and starting to really breathe energy in that direction. That in and of itself can be hugely transformative. Yeah. Just changing the story. Like you don't even have to change the circumstances that currently are to change the story. You just have to start looking at focusing on a different money story. Yeah. About what already exists for you.
Yeah. And focusing is the key word there, because as you reframe, just continue to guide your mind back to that place of focusing on what you do want versus what you might not have, or that lack mentality. So just tune in to what it means to focus, and then tune that continually into abundance. Yeah. Because abundance is all around us. You can, look around the room or wherever you are right now, you'll see abundance. You might see an abundance of sun. You might see an abundance of green. You might see an abundance of people that you love. So abundance is always there. It's just a matter of, are you focusing on that, or are you focusing on what you don't have? Because wherever your focus is what you'll attract more of. So really tune in to that reframe.
Can I just actually say about that, because I almost started a Instagram post a few weeks ago about the fact that when I started like really hanging out with Zoe, which was a year ago now, like we'd been friends for like 5 years or something, but a year ago, like you moved to Toronto, I was moving back to Toronto, we like started, all the Lo and Zoe stuff. Zoe was always someone that said abundance all the time. Like you'd sit down to eat and you'd be like, oh, abundance. Yeah. Like, and since then, and I picked it up quickly because we hang out, you become the people that you hang around with. And I have to say, it's something I do every day now. It's like, I'll look at the sunset and be like, oh, abundance. I'll look at my food on my table and think abundance. I'll look at the sunlight coming in through the windows. Like it's all super abundant. And I have to say, my life, since I've been doing that in the last year, has gotten incredibly more abundant. That I've been noticing the abundance. And so I was actually going to like make an Instagram post and tag you in it, because it was something I picked up from Zoe, where it was just like, it's not like the universe doesn't care if you're in an abundant vibration about, the plants in your apartment, like me, or if you're in an abundant vibration about the money in your bank account. It helps to look at your money through a lens of appreciation for it, which is really just a decision. We can choose to be appreciative of how money shows up for us. But if that has resistance for you, like, are you appreciative of food? Are you appreciative of the sunshine? Like, if we start tuning ourselves to abundant in those ways, that in and of itself will have more abundance in all forms start to come to you.
You guys, and the best part of that is that it feels so good.
Yeah, it does.
It feels so good to focus on abundance. Presence. And it feels so, being present in the moment. Like, I look at Princess Jasmine and I'm like, oh, I just love you.
That's her plant, by the way, for those of you who don't know. her palm that she tried to kill last year.
I didn't try to kill. I went on a holiday.
It was really funny, but anyway,
she survived. She's abundant.
Well, and you gave her all that love. So, so let's talk like a little bit. I mean, so we just talked about even just focusing on money in a different way. We'll have more of it start to come to you. I mean, maybe we can talk a little bit first about what our money looks like. Yeah. So for me, since the beginning of the year, I've paid off like 25 grand or something like that. And that was like debt that I had from going to school, because I have 2 degrees. That was debt that I had from starting my business. That was just like debt from spending and living. And I, again, always had this mindset of like, there's just barely enough, right? So anytime I bought something for myself or went on a trip, it was often not money that I really had, right? So in the beginning of the year, I shifted my focus from, or the story that I had about that from, I don't have the money to pay this off right now. That was always my story. Like, you know, the debt is something that will happen off in the future. To, I do have the money. I can start paying more of this off. And I have to say that in and of itself, just starting that story had more money start coming my way. And I started hitting consistent $20,000 months in my business from January on, which was exactly when I decided now is the time to start paying this money off.
Yes.
And you've had a similar story.
Yeah, similar story too. I'd say mine's more just in regards to focusing on that abundance. Like that, what I would think was one of the biggest shifts for me this year was to just really focus. It's not about where the money's coming from and really tuning out of that. Because even like last month was my most successful month of the year, where I made almost the same amount in 1 month that I made in my entry-level marketing job in 1 full year. So when you think about it like that, it's like and you know me, there was nothing in particular that I was like focused on manifesting. There was no course that was launching.
Every time I talked to her, she was like, I just had another client pay in full. Like, I feel like every day that I talked to you, that was your story.
And it's just because like I just tune into my own personal work of like, I just feel like I've healed a lot in the past couple of months, and I'm just ready to be the vessel. I'm ready to be the channel and help people in that way. So I kind of just felt like I'm really guided to focus on one-on-one coaching right now. Barely advertised it. Yeah. And it was like I just attracted and have consistently attracted inquiries about my programs and have had a lot of people sign on, pay in full. Yeah. And it's been amazing because, you know, as I work through the coaching journey with other people, I also heal more myself because everyone's your mirror in that process too. And I think that's how I become more and more of the magnet is I'm focusing on the abundance that is my life every day, that I'm so grateful I have the opportunity to, you know, live in the place that I live, have time, space, freedom. Like I could coach people from anywhere, but just the abundance that comes from the way that I feel when I am in a session with someone. Yeah. And that's what's become a magnet and shown up as money as a byproduct of that.
Right. Yeah. So, like, because Zoe has also focused on, you know, getting out of debt.
Yeah. I think last month, I think I paid off $12,000 in debt.
Holy smokes.
Like in 1 month. Like, but I just decided to. It was just kind of outstanding sitting there, and I was like, yeah, like I'm just gonna do it. I just pay it all off and done.
Well, and I mean, you've been talking about this for like almost a year.
Yeah,
you had a lot of guilt and shame around the debt, right? Like it caused you a lot of anxiety.
Yeah, but it was like as soon as I stopped focusing on that.
Yes.
Like because I was somewhat focused on like this is this thing that I like have to now, and I'm like I moved into a space of like, of course that outstanding debt is gonna get paid. That's inevitable. Yeah. And it's like what feels good for me to focus on right now. And it's coaching and it's being with the people or creating YouTube content. So I just focused all on that, and then boom, the debt just disappeared.
Yeah.
And it was fun to pay it off. It was.
Really fun. It actually does feel really good.
Yeah. And I still got Pamela and like what else did I buy? I bought my like Dyson hair product. Like I was living very like.
Pamela is so. I feel like I have to tell people who these inanimate objects are. Pamela's her new bicycle. She just talks about them as if everybody knows who Pamela is. Sorry, like Pamela and Princess Jasmine. I'm like, Zoe, you have to give some people some background. Okay. Zoe names everything and everyone. I love it though. Yeah. Anyway, so like, I mean. In terms of, because we talked about like giving specific numbers, but I would say like at this point, a low month for me is like a $10,000 month. Yeah. You know, and I still have to choose to see, like I was saying this to a client the other day, when that happens, you know, because I was aiming for every month to be, I had, in April, I had a $25,000 month, and I was doing pretty consistent 20K months up until last month. I think I just burnt myself out. I didn't do the mindset work, which I want to share here. And yeah, it was still a 5-figure month, but it was funny how I defaulted into that not being good enough. And then I had to do the work around like, okay, Lauren, let's like, you know, because there's always a decision to see money in lack and see money in abundance, no matter what. Mm-hmm. Right. And it's just about your perspective that you take on it. So that's what like, and I'm really working on, I mean, I want to start hitting like 50K months by the end of the year. And I don't want it to be hard. I don't really want to work harder than I'm working right now, to be honest. Yeah. If anything, more money is just like I want to be hiring people. I want to be like doing a lot. I want to be in like my zone of genius in my business and not doing all the background stuff nearly as much. But yeah, so that's what it looks like for me in terms of money. And for me, in terms of where it comes from, I launch different programs and courses. Some are with Zoe. I've done one with Amber. I have Mind Magic with Tara. And then I do like more business coaching programs at a higher price point, like my masterminds and things like that. So there's always like sort of different things launching each month. And a good amount of it is passive, but I'm still coaching quite a bit, like one-on-one.
Yeah. Well, last month, I would say more specifically, my money came from one-on-one coaching. But I also YouTube, and I also have different avenues like that I've just set up for myself in the past, and magical money finds me in those ways too. But I would say the bulk of that was one-on-one coaching and having people pay in full.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we wanted to talk, just maybe we'll end this episode talking about the power of trust. So there's really two things that I would say I regularly do, and I really didn't in May, and that's where I think the discrepancy was. But one for me is visualization, and we talk all about that in QC Squared and why visualization on like a subatomic level is the key to having anything that you freaking want in life, and quickly as well. I was really visualizing like paying off this debt and making those payments and seeing those like $0 balances when I signed into my bank account. And then the other thing is trust. We've really it is a journey, because I find I'll get into a place where I feel so trusting of money, and then I kind of default back into like worrying about it a little bit. And so it's always this process of like ironing out those old narratives, and you know, it's an up and down journey, of course. But yeah, what would you say, I mean, other than what we've talked about already?
Yeah, other than what we've talked about already. So the I have received list, which I actually created a YouTube video on, but it's each morning, every day, I write down 10 things that I want to manifest as I have received, as if it's already occurred. And I have crossed off almost everything on my list. Now I'm starting to reach a little bit more for the quantum type things. But I had written down, I received a new one-on-one client painful. I received a new one-on-one client. I've received a past one-on-one client re-sign on. Things like that. Like not specific numbers, but I did put up my debt there. Like I've received payment of this outstanding debt. And I've just spent the month crossing these things off. So that has been a magical tool for me.
Can I just add something that Zoe does specifically? Because a lot of people would write things like that down and then not have it happen. But what you do very well is you write it down and then you go and you live your freaking life.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm just going on a 3-hour bike ride today. Like, so you're not like attached to those things because you see it as being fun, and you're like, and I'm just going to ride across the city and live my best life in the sunshine. Like, and so that's an important thing, I think, to add there, where it's like, write it down and then forget about it. That's really what manifestation was supposed to be about.
Thanks, Lo. But just that being said, too, is that I'm in such a place of trust with this list, because I built this relationship with this list knowing that anything I write down, it's inevitable for me. It's going to happen. So, yeah, I can go bike ride for 3 hours and like not think about money for a second, because I'm just in freedom mode. So, implement practices that feel good to you so you can build that trust muscle within yourself and what works for you in regards to manifestation. As Laura mentioned too, visualization. But what I found that really has worked for me is like doing longer meditations in the past few months, where I'm meditating for an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening, because quarantine mode, I have that quarantine now. And that's just been me getting really in tune with myself and how I like to feel. And that same feeling is like how I feel in a coaching session with someone else, is because I'm really in my heart space. So I think spending more time in my heart space naturally has brought me to attracting more clients to be in that space, which money then has been a byproduct of that. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah, just tuning into how I want to feel. So heart space and freedom, tuning into the feelings, whether that is sitting in a longer meditation, whether that is visualizing or scripting it out, but just focusing on those feelings. Like, the feeling is the secret.
Yeah, feeling into. I mean, that's for me what visualization is I feel into the reality that I want. And it's so amazing, because when I'm doing that, my whole life starts shifting towards that reality. And then when I'm not doing it, it doesn't.
Yeah. And one thing too, accountability. You guys, if you need that accountability, whether it's plugging into your own schedule, like Laura and I were doing meditations over Zoom. Okay, because we knew that we do these quantum visualizations together, and we were both like, "Hey, we haven't done that in a while."
Because quarantine. Like,
and then we're like, "Let's just do it on Zoom." Like, imagine if I wonder if anyone bombed into our Zoom room and just saw us lying there.
I just have like a regular Zoom room that all my clients have access to, and Zoe has actually bombed in before
in my pajamas.
In her pajamas, Tara and I were live streaming into Mind Magic, and then all of a sudden Zoe was just there. That was hilarious.
I'm so ridiculous. Like, my life is hilarious.
It was the best because you were confused, and then you I guess you saw live on Facebook, and then she just ducks out of the frame.
I was in red flannel Canadian kid pajamas.
Live in front of 20 people. It was great. Anyways, so that's our money episode for you guys. And let's just all start talking about our money if you want to. I mean, we're not here saying that everybody needs to be openly talking about their money on Instagram or anything like that, but we need to be at least talking to ourselves about our money and what it is that we really want and giving ourselves that permission.
Totally. And if this was the loving little push that you needed, just take that leap of faith. We'll see you guys soon.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much for spending a piece of your day with us and tuning in to the Lo and Zoe Show.
If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to rate it and share on social media. Be sure to tag us.
Until next time,
stay abundant.